Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, based off of the stack of books in my lap right now, I have received some more additions to my little home library. And so I thought, how fun would it be to talk to you about it and go through all the books I got. Now I want to preface this by saying I am not a big fan of haul videos because it just feels really materialistic. So I want to preface this by saying amassing this many books at once is not normal. It should not be something that you strive to do on a regular basis. However, I received these over the course of over a month. We did have Christmas recently, and a lot of these were gifts from friends or family. So I just want to preface this by saying, this is not to brag. These are just books that I'm really excited about, and I wanted to share it with you. So, let's get into it. So in total, in the past 6-8 weeks, I've gotten 26 new books. I think that these are all that I've gotten. It's all that I can remember getting recently. I haven't been keeping them in one specific spot so I don't lose track. They've just been on my bookshelves and I got them all down so I could show you what I got. So it's 26 books, I think. And they're a little all over the place in genres, so I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right into it. So the first book we have is Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein. This was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, which I actually have not looked up which book ended up winning, but it's supposed to be kind of eerie. It's about this woman who ends up moving to this remote country to live with her brother, to be his housekeeper, and the whole town kind of rejects her, and it's supposed to be kind of dark and it seems a little spooky, and I'm kind of excited about it. I've heard really good things about this, so I'm definitely pumped about this. I'm trying to read more literary fiction and get back into reading classical fiction, and so I think that this is going to be a good start to the year, so I'm definitely excited to read this one. The next book we have is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I have actually already read this. I listened to the audiobook on Scribd. If you don't have that and you like audiobooks, definitely think about subscribing or look into it, because it's almost like a Netflix for ebooks, documents, sheet music if you play an instrument, and audiobooks. And so I really enjoy it, and I really liked the audiobook for this, and so I wanted a hard copy, and I just think the cover is so cool, especially given what the book is about. So next we have Mother-Daughter Murder Night by Nina Simon. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mother and a daughter try to solve a murder, and I've been really into more I don't even want to say suspenseful or thriller type books, but murders, they're fun. And I have picked this book up 3 times now, and I just finally bit the bullet and bought it. That's really hard to say. I got this book. It looks good. I'm excited. The next book I got is The Wicked King by Holly Black, which is the second book in the Folk of Air series. Is that what this series is called? I don't know, but The Cruel Prince is the first one, and I really actually loved that book. And then I found out that this is the same author that wrote the Spiderwick Chronicles, which I was obsessed with as a kid, and it makes so much sense because it's kind of a similar type of vibe, the fantasy aspect is like very similar like storybook, elves and goblins and all that sort of stuff. So I have started this book already, but I don't know. I might have to restart it. It's been a while since I've picked it up, because stuff happened in my real life, and so I ended up like just forgetting about it. So I want to come back to it and finish this because I'm getting a little obsessed with it. The next book we have is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. I have already read this book, so I'm not going to go into any details right now. That'll be discussed in a different video, but I got this one. Next is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. I don't know how you pronounce that. I have, of course, already read this book too, so I'm not going to go into it. But it's about basically a witch and a witch hunter who fall in love. And I didn't realize that this was a series. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have read it when I did, because I don't try not to be in the middle of so many series. But yeah, I just think the cover too is like so cool. And apparently this is the sequel on the back. And it's another cool cover. So I got this one. Following our YA theme, I finally got The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I honestly couldn't tell you too much about what this book is about, just that I have heard a lot of good things. I have seen it at the store a lot. I've picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down over and over and over again. So now I can finally read it because I have a copy. Next, we have The Complete Poems by Emily Bronte and The Selected Letters by Charlotte Bronte. I went through a bit of a kick recently, like with the Bronte sisters, and I ended up buying a couple of their books in the Penguins Clothbound Classics. I wanted these as well because I find it really interesting when reading classic literature to learn about the lives of the authors at the time that they were writing these great novels. Especially when I did that for Hemingway, it made me appreciate Hemingway's writing so much more because I could see him come through the story. And I wasn't judging it as harshly because I was seeing it as just an extension of himself, and it made me appreciate it a lot more. So I want to do that with the Bronte sisters because I just think the fact that they were all so talented is just crazy. So I'm very excited about these. I've already kind of skimmed through them a bit, and what I've read so far is very good. Next, we have The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. Again, I think this was just shortlisted for the Booker Prize. I don't think it ended up winning. If you're going to get this book, check your trigger warnings. I did not realize that it contained some of these more darker themes, so I definitely want to call that out in case that is something that you're trying to avoid. But it's supposed to be like a generational saga about this family, and I think they're in Ireland. Yeah. And it's all kind of centered around the idea of what small tasks have or events have such big influence on our lives, like a bee sting. So I am really excited about reading this. It's a bit daunting because it's such a thick book, but I've heard that it's very good, so I can't wait to read it. Next, we have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which I have already read, but I didn't have a hard copy, and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, which is, of course, the second book in her little duology. I haven't read this one yet. I definitely want to, but I think I might need to reread this book first because I don't know if I remember enough about it to hop into the second one, but definitely excited about those two. I'm just glad to have a copy of this book because I really did love it so much. Next, we have Jade City by Fonda Lee. I saw another booktuber read this book, and she just had like so many good things to say about it, and so I like have been dying to read it. It's about well, I don't think it actually takes place in Hong Kong, but it's supposed to be kind of like the vibe of like a Hong Kong like gangster film. And they trade jade as currency. And so it definitely seemed interesting, different than any other book that I typically read. It is a series though, so I might be waiting on reading this, but I am definitely excited. Next, we have the much loved Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, or if you watch How I Met Your Mother, it's Encyclopedia, but I'm not a loser, so I'm gonna say Encyclopedia of Fairies. And I am actually really excited about the format of this because it's kind of written more like a diary, and it's about this professor who is an expert on fairies, and she ends up going to like this village, and it's basically about her research there. And I love books that are written like they're like a journal, because it just feels like a lot more casual. I feel like you can have a lot of fun with it. And a lot of books I read when I was a kid ended up being like a diary type format. So I'm actually really excited to read this. I've heard a lot of good things. Next, we have A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair. And I've had this described to me as kind of like a Throne of Glass type vibe, because I think the main character is supposed to be an assassin. But again, it's part of a series, and so I am trying not to start it, but I've heard like such good things about this book, and I think the eyes on her are so cool because they're kind of like reflective. I don't know. I think it looks really cool. So I am definitely pumped about reading this. Next, we have Tress of the Emerald Sea by none other than Brandon Sanderson. This is the third Brandon Sanderson book I own, and I've read none of them yet. So I really do need to work on that, but I just think it's so sweet because he wrote this for his wife, and I just think that's so sweet. So I definitely am looking forward to reading this as well. Next, we have Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor, and this is about two sisters who end up like working at this hotel, but they can't leave the hotel, which just like seems really interesting. And I think that the hotel itself like moves from town to town, but like once you end up working there, you can't leave. So that sounded really cool. Next, we have The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. And I think it's just about like a unicorn. I think that's pretty much, yeah, she ends up becoming like this unicorn ends up becoming friends with a magician and this girl, and I just think that sounds really fun, having a unicorn be a character in a book about a unicorn. So fun. Next, we have Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake, which I have almost bought for like years now. So at least I own it now. I hear that this is like one of the most beautiful love stories you can read. So we'll see if that's the case. I have not been in the mood for like romance recently, but when I am, I'm coming for you, Olivia Blake. Next, we have Electra by Jennifer Saint, and this was actually recommended to me by a worker at our local bookshop because I was looking for a copy of Circe by Madeline Miller, which is one of my favorite books of all time, but I just don't have a hard copy, so I was like, maybe I'll finally buy one, but they were out, and so she recommended this book to me, which is about the daughter of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon. And I feel like I've talked about this like 1,000 times. I have been loving these like retelling of Greek myths from the perspective of the women in the myths who tend to be more marginalized in these stories. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. I hope it gives me the same feeling that Circe does. So we'll see. Next we have The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. Do I need to say anything else? It's about a family that lives upstairs. No, I'm just kidding. It is about this girl who ends up learning who her birth parents are, and she kind of gets sucked into like their family, and I think that there's like some skeletons in the closet, obviously, knowing Lisa Jewell, so this has to be good. I have very high hopes for it. Next we have a book that I feel like everyone has read at some point, but I haven't, and that is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I have heard that this book like changes your life when you read it. I'm trying to keep my hopes at a reasonable level, but so I definitely want to give it a shot. I think it's supposed to be like you read it over the course of like 12 weeks, and I think there's supposed to be a workbook that goes along with it that I do not have, so I'll probably have to get that. But it's supposed to be about like teaching yourself or relearning how to be creative, because her whole premise is that everyone is creative and we just forget how to be as we get older. So I definitely am excited to read this and hopefully work through the workbook. Next we have kind of a random book to be on my shelf, but it looks interesting, and that is The Wager by David Grann. Jackson actually bought this book for me because he thought it was about pirates, and it's not about pirates, but it is about like sailors, so it's kind of similar, and it sounds really interesting. It is nonfiction, and it's kind of a big nonfiction book, but I do want to read more outside my comfort zone, so maybe this year I will get around to it. I have looked at this a couple of times, to be fair, because it does sound really interesting. It's about this mutiny, and like he kind of goes back and like researches like their logs and like manuscripts, and like tries to piece together what happens, and basically like I think he comes to the conclusion that like you can't really know what happened, but it's not the way that certain people have made it out to be. So it sounds interesting. I've heard really good things about it, and I mean, I trust Jackson's taste, so we'll see. Next we have The Voyage of Argo by Apollonius of Rhodes, which, if you can't tell, I am currently in the middle of reading. It's basically about Jason and the Argonauts as they go to find the Golden Fleece, and it's pretty good so far. I won't talk about it too much, but they have some dramatic people in this book, so if you're looking for some drama, don't be intimidated, because it really is not that big of a book, and it's dramatic. That's all I'm gonna say. Next we have Emma by Jane Austen. I actually got this to read with a friend, and she really loves Pride and Prejudice, the book, and I didn't like the book as much, but I've heard that Emma is supposed to be like the best book that Jane Austen ever wrote. It's like her masterpiece, and so she kind of convinced me to read it, so we're going to read it together, and I think that'll be really exciting. And I really love the cloth-bound classic look, but I don't like the feel. If you're like a feel person, maybe like try it out before you buy them, because it's kind of like a rough fabric, so kind of a bummer, but it looks so pretty. Next we have Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, which my parents actually got me because I had it on my list of books that I've been wanting to read for a while, and my mom said that she actually read it before she wrapped it for me, and she was like, this is such a good book. Like, it's not very long, but it was so good, and she said that it was really beautiful. So I am excited to read this. It is based in Ireland in 1985, and it's like the time leading up to Christmas, if you can't tell from the cover. And it apparently is about this man who's a coal merchant, and that's really all I know about it, but it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, so it's gotta be good. It's gotta be good. And my mom likes it, which says even more, honestly. And next we have probably the most fun book that I have ever owned. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love Penguin's classics. I have been obsessed with them since I was in college. I love the cloth bound, as we have discussed previously in this video. And so my parents got me the Penguin's Classics book, which basically goes through every single book in like the Penguin's Classics collection and talks about like the history of them and when they were published by, Penguin Classics. And I just think that is so much fun, and it is, of course, cloth bound. So I just think this is so cool. And I have flipped through it a little bit. It is definitely more of a coffee table book, but it definitely has a lot of really interesting information. So if you are kind of a little bit more of a fan of Penguin's Classics, or you just really like books, this is a fun book to have. So I definitely am so happy that I have this, and I would recommend it. Alright, so those are all of the books that I got either in the past 6 to 8 weeks or for Christmas. I'm definitely excited about some of these books. I can't wait to read them. Let me know what you got in the comments down below. If you see any of your favorite books here that you want me to read next, please let me know. I'm open to suggestions because there's so many options that I just don't know what to do. So that is everything for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!